Welcome to Achieve Wealth through value-add real estate investing. This is the show where the guru hype is banned and you get direct insights from commercial real estate operators. If you're a passive investor, this show can help you better understand investment opportunities. And if you're an active investor, the lessons from each episode can help you to become more effective in your own deals. Now, here's your host, investor and author, James Kandasamy.
Hey audience, welcome to Achieve Wealth podcast, where we focus a lot on value-add real estate investing. Today we have Jeff Greenberg, who has more than 40 years experience in management, staff supervision, development, and training. Jeff has been investing since 2007 and have over more than 40 million multi-property projects consisting of around 1,000 units. So it consists, the deals that he controls consists of student housing and some of the multifamily units across Georgia, Arizona, Texas, and Ohio. And Jeff focuses a lot on value-add student housing, which is very interesting, right? Until now, we have a lot of podcast interview on conventional multifamily, workforce housing. But now we're going to talk a lot more about student housing. But Jeff has also done market rate and also senior living multifamily properties. Hey, Jeff, welcome to the show.
Well, how you doing today?
I'm good. So thanks for coming in. I want to go a bit more detail on how did you get started, because you went across 1,000 units across different states. So can you describe to our listeners and audience on how did you get started?
Well, probably similar to a lot of other people. I started out with single family, but actually never did any single family deals. That was in 2007 when the prices were going down so fast that it was hard to do much in the single family area as far as REO properties. The banks weren't releasing them. So I did bump into a guru, and so I did go to seminars and did get some mentoring around in 2007, 2008. And then started with my first property that I ever bought, other than my own personal residence, was a 20-unit property. And it was a syndicated deal. So we brought in investors into that first deal. And that was essentially my entry into it. Skipped right past all the single family stuff.
And what year was it, Jeff?
That was the first property we bought, actually was in 2010.
2010, okay.
Yeah.
So 2010, you started with 20 units, and the guru and the cost that you had taken, was that more on multifamily, or was it more on the single family side of it?
That was all multifamily stuff.
Okay, got it. So you got into that, and then you started buying 20 units, and which market was that?
Well, that market was in Harlingen, which is in South Texas.
Okay.
It's near Brownsville and McAllen, for those people that know that area.
Okay. And so 2010 was supposed to be a perfect time to start investing in real estate after the 2008 crash. Can you describe what happened in your first deal? I mean, at high level, what happened, how did you come up in terms of the results for the first deal?
Yeah, the first deal, that property was only 3 years old. It was built in 2007. It was 100% occupied, and it was in a very slow growth market. So we had the big plans of raising rents, and they were already paying electric, so we were planning on building back water. And the problem was it was very difficult to raise the rents. We were getting a lot of resistance, and doing the build back of the water, we met with a lot of resistance. So, and we had nowhere else to go. It was already 100% occupied because it was a new property. And so that was our value add that was a plan, which didn't work very well because we couldn't get those rents up. It took a long time to get the rents up. So the lesson learned from there was, that you needed to do more research onto the potential for the value adds. And in that property, we held it for 6 years. We were supposed to sell in 5. We held it to 6 because we drew a line in the sand as far as what price we would take. And it took us an extra year before we were able to get that price in order to get the investors a fair return. But it took us an extra year. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been much of a profit on that property. So it was a seminar.
It was a seminar. I mean, that's awesome that you're sharing your first lessons learned, right? Because sometimes we forget that there are things that we missed out, or there are things that we don't really see when you go and buy a multifamily, right? Sometimes you buy in a hot market and it went up 200-300%. People think that they did the work, right? But that's not going to be the case all the time, right? So,
well, that's basically what happened on the next property, though. Mm-hmm. So the next property was a property we bought in Houston, where it was a foreclosed property that we were buying it. The owner we were buying it from actually bought it as a foreclosure. So he had it for about 2 years. He bought it for this is 62 units, so he bought it for $600,000, and we bought it for 1.3 after he had it for 2 years. And so we got it for about under $21,000 a unit. And at the time in Houston, the values were going from about $25,000 to maybe $35,000 a unit. So we still bought it under market value. And then in 3 years, we sold it for $2.7 million. And the reason we got that value, part of it was 85% occupied when we got it. We got it up to 95% occupied. The revenue was about $36,000. We got it up to about $42,000. But also at that time, the cap rates compressed. Mm-hmm. So we bought it at a 9 cap and sold it at a 7 cap. So we got advantage of the market appreciation, as well as what we did for it. So that was a perfect storm for us. So it completely made up for our first one, in that the investors got a 120% return on a 3-year hold, so a 40% annualized return, which nobody complained about.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
absolutely.
That's unusual, and that was totally different from the other property where the investors got a lot better than they would have in the bank, but they didn't get a fantastic return. So the different properties, different deals.
So that too is conventional multifamily, right? And
that
how
was
many?
Yeah.
And how many conventional multifamily did you do before you start hitting into student housing?
Well, the next one after that actually was a student housing. I mean, I was invested in another person's deal. That was about 700 units, $20 million deal that we were in. But the next deal I did after that, I actually we broke up our partnership. My partner decided not to do real estate anymore, and I continued on my own. And that's when I got a small property in Ohio. Okay. I had a 19-year-old student that went and found this property for me in Oxford, Ohio. And that's when I got into student housing. So we were talking, we mentioned earlier as far as how getting into student housing. I really didn't plan on it. It was my intern that found the property and said, hey, let's get this. And the numbers looked good, and we got into it. So that was our first student housing deal out in Oxford.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go a bit more dig deeper into that. But I mean, you are now in California, right? You are based out of California, but you have been buying in McAllen, Texas, and Houston and Ohio. So how did you decide on where to go, or is it just whatever opportunity that comes to you? I mean,
well, I've been pretty opportunistic. Basically, when an opportunity comes in. Right now, we're kind of reversing that a little bit and trying to do more focusing on markets. Mm-hmm. But at that point in time, we were just looking at opportunities. And when an opportunity came, we did our research on the market and did it afterwards rather than doing it up ahead of time. We decided, do we really want to be in this market? And if we did, then we went up to the property. But it was more properties came to us from different directions.
Okay.
The one in Georgia, I had a lady working with me that I had trained, and she developed a relationship with a broker in Georgia, and that was pretty much where we got the Georgia property from, which was our next student housing property.
So one thing I want to clarify, you said you had an intern and you have this lady that you have been trained. So do you have interns working for you, or do you have students that are looking for a deal, or what is
yeah, the first one was an intern, and then after that, there was a group of people that came to me and asked me to train them. Okay. And so I started training them and teaching them how to find properties. And in the last 3 years, we've done a couple deals together, but they've basically found the properties. Yeah, and then I've been training them as we've been going, showing them a lot of the different aspects of it, doing due diligence with them, and taking them on the tours with a lot of those students. Since then, things have changed a little bit, but at that time, those were people that I had trained.
So is it like part of your mentoring program, or you're just trained for fun kind of thing?
It wasn't a formal mentoring program, but it was a mentoring program.
Okay, got it.
But it was just more informal, that I had helped people, and in turn they would bring properties in, and if I liked them, we'd go after them.
Oh, got it.
It saved me underwriting 100 deals to find one. They would underwrite 100 deals, bring me one, and I'd only have to look at a few of them. So it was a lot fewer deals that I had to look at. When they would bring them supposedly already got to go, and I would decide yay or nay on them if I liked them.
Okay, got it. Okay, got it. So coming back to the student housing, and you said one of your interns found it, right? And can you describe how did he find that deal?
Well, he was embarrassed to tell me, actually. He was embarrassed to tell me until after we closed that he actually found it on LoopNet. And there are deals on LoopNet, but usually they're overpriced, or maybe there's some other problem with them. And it so happened that the seller was beat up by two other buyers prior to my purchase, that we got it for a much lower rate. So at the price that we got it at, it was a great deal. But at the original price, it wouldn't have been.
Oh, got it. So let's describe the process. So this intern bring you the deal, right? So what are the few things that you look at the deal that meets, that you think, you're going to take a second look at it?
Well, several things. The one thing I had my interns do is I want to do as little work as possible myself. So I told them I want bullet points on why I want to be in that market. What's the advantages of this market? With its student housing, the emphasis is more on the school, but all the different reasons, that this is a great market to be in, and then also as well as the numbers for the property itself. And basically, they have to come in and give me a sales pitch and convince me with a presentation that this is a deal I want to do. And on the regular market rate ones, the typical stuff, with the employment and the population growth and the age of the population and all of that typical stuff that we look at. But with the student housing, it's the size of the college, the percentage of rooms available on campus versus off campus. Basically the health of the university, the location of the property, how close it is to the university, those kind of things that we look for more so on the student housing.
So can you go a bit more deeper into it? Like how far from the campus would you consider in campus versus out of campus?
Well, as far as what we look for, typically we want something within a mile of the campus.
Okay.
my Georgia one's a block away, and my Ohio one is within what they call a mile square. Now my Arizona property is a little bit farther out. It's 2 miles off campus, and it's a little bit more of a struggle. But you're not going to get the prime rates, and we understood that because when you're 2 miles out. So you want it close by the campus. You want it on the right side of the campus rather than on way away from the classrooms where people still have to walk a mile across the fields to get to campus. So you want to be on the closer side where the classes are. But also what was I thinking? You want to be on that. It will help you out also if you're near the bar district or where all the hangouts are. Mm-hmm. So that sometimes will make up for being a little bit far from the campus if you're where all the hangout places, the cool places are. So that helps you out. The other thing in the student housing is the bedroom bathroom parity. If you could get a 1-on-1 with a 1 bedroom and a 1 bathroom, that's going to be a lot better than your 4 2s or your 3 1s or whatever. The more bathrooms you have, they like that. Also, it seems that students nowadays, they want to share with fewer people. So your 4s are not as a 4-2 wouldn't be as popular as a 2-1. Where you still got 2 people sharing a bathroom, but you only have 2 people that have to get along with each other. And if you could get a 1-1, you're even better off. That they're a lot happier with. In fact, I was talking to someone the other day that had some 4 2s that actually split them in half and made 2 1s out of them. Just had to put a kitchenette in order that they have less people to share.
Okay, interesting. So have you started focusing fully on student housing now? You're still doing conventional multifamily?
We're doing both. We're doing both. I do like the fact that people mess up student housing, and it gives us an opportunity. Everybody, we know, from the groups that we're in, everybody's looking for value add, multifamily, but there's fewer people looking for value add student housing.
Correct.
And so that just gives me a little bit of an advantage on that. But other than that, that's the main reason I'm looking at student housing is because there's less people looking at it. And if you know what to do with the student housing, there's certainly some great opportunities. I don't think I would recommend it as somebody's first opportunity, the first investment, because there is a little more risk into it. But it's a good asset class.
So let's discuss some of the risks that's involved with student housing, right? So can you outline a few risks that a newbie to watch out for student housing?
Yeah, well, part of the risk is missing the lease up window. Where in multifamily, if you don't lease it up this month, maybe you'll lease it up next month. But on student housing, if you don't get it leased up by a certain time, and each campus is usually different, if you don't get it leased up in time during that time, you may be stuck with empty units, for the whole year. So you've got to get it leased up during that time. The other thing is you're going to have higher turnover, and it depends on the property as well. My Georgia property, we're hardly getting any turnover because there are not a lot of other options in the market. My Ohio property, there's plenty of other options. So they may go from one property to another each year. Same with my Arizona property. They may switch around. So it's going to depend on what's available at their price range if there's going to be turnover. And your turnover, my first year on the Ohio property, I think we're like 85% turnover. Okay, which most people will freak out thinking, okay, 85%, and it's all at once. It's everybody's gone at the same time. And so you've got to turn all these units and have them ready, for the new tenants coming in. So we always budget for a higher expense as far as because of the turnovers, because turnovers, as we know, is one of our bigger expenses. So we'll budget for that. A lot of people think that student housing, you have a lot more in the way of damage.
Okay.
And we really haven't seen that. We haven't seen a lot of damage. And the thing is we charge back everything that's caused by the students. That isn't normal wear and tear. I mean, we get things, wine stains in the carpeting, or iron marks where they put an iron down on the carpeting and melted the carpeting. Shot glasses or beer caps in the garbage disposal. We do get lockouts, where we're, having to fix a door because somebody kicked it in order to, to get in, or you get domestic disputes where, some boyfriend goes and punches a wall because he's pissed off or something. I mean, we do get some of those, but the deposits cover most of that stuff.
Got it.
So
I'm sure the parents will pay too, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If it gets beyond the deposit, what we have, then the parents will usually jump in.
And how much is the turnover cost that you usually budget for student housing? Like in conventional, usually, like for me, I usually budget like $100 per unit per year.
As far as for turnover?
Yeah.
Well,
not repair maintenance, just turnover.
I mean, overall, I mean, I know, and we budgeted. Well, if we look at the overall repair and maintenance budget, usually we're at about $500 or $600.
Correct. Yeah.
Right, overall. And so my student housing ones, my Ohio one, I believe we're at $1,800 per unit.
Repair and maintenance plus turnover. Wow, that's a lot.
But I don't think we're. I have to lower that down. I don't even think we're using that. But that's what I originally put in the budget.
Okay, got it. Yeah, because usually total repair and maintenance plus turnover is like 500 to maximum 600 on conventional. Right?
Yeah, I mean it's going to be mainly because of your turnover costs. And we've been on that property. We've been painting every wall every time we turn over, which I'm not sure if we need that, but we've been doing that. It's been a little bit higher. I mean, it's been higher on that one. The other ones are one in Georgia. Our turnover costs aren't nearly as much.
And what do you do anything special to reduce your turnover costs?
Well, we try to encourage releasing, and we do give lower rates for those people that are releasing, as well as if they release early, we do give them discounts on that. And the thing is, like I get on my Georgia property. So if they release, we may keep their rent at the same rate, or maybe just raise it slightly in order to keep them in, because that saves us a lot of money. That saves us a lot of money on the turnovers. Correct.
What about on the interior, like carpets versus vinyl versus metal?
Typically, I mean, we don't have to make it too fancy, but we do put. I believe in the Ohio one, we've got the roll-on vinyl flooring. In the bedrooms, we do have carpeting. It's just Formica countertops. We don't need to do anything fancy, and that's going to depend as well on the demographics of your clients. My Arizona property, my Ohio property is upper middle class. Mm-hmm. That's Miami University, and it's probably an upper middle class clientele. My Georgia property is a very low economic clientele. They would be thrilled with anything we put in there. Hmm. So we just kind of resurfaced the vinyl countertops, or the Formica countertops. We did some chemical wash on the showers and the tubs, and repainted everything. We do have nice laminate floor in there, except for the bedrooms. The bedrooms, the only rooms with carpeting. Just painted the cabinets. from the state that they were in, what we did just totally brightened up the property. I mean, just totally changed it. They were a mess. And this isn't an old property. That's a 1999 property. But there was some old indoor-outdoor carpeting in the hallways that just looked just totally disgusting. That we put all vinyl laminate in the hallway and it looks great now.
Awesome. And what about during summer? A lot of them don't stay in the unit, right? So do they still pay for the summer, or does it get free rent, or is it vacant, or what's happening?
Again, that depends on each of our markets. In the Georgia one, I believe we were 70% for this summer, which is high. I think last year we were about 60% during the summer. So those that are going to summer school can stay there. But in August, we'll be back up at 98 to 100% on that property. That was a property we bought at 30% occupied. And now we're over 100, or we're at 100, I guess, not over. We're at 100% occupancy on that one.
And what about students, which is more like a 4-year degree versus postgraduate degree? Have you tried experimenting with that?
In Ohio, my Ohio property, we have some studio apartments, and a lot of those are rented to graduates as well as young professors. So yeah, those are great tenants if you can get them. The graduates, they're a little more mature, and you never hear anything from them. So yeah, those are great on some of the properties. We do have graduates in some properties, but most of them are second-year students. Typically, the schools want or require that the students stay on campus the first year, so as freshmen. So
Correct.
we usually get them as sophomores.
Got it. So coming back to the demand side of it, right, for student housing, let's say the price in terms of rent, the rent is much, much higher compared to the normal workforce housing, right? Do you think that's a benefit as well?
Yes, absolutely. The rent is higher than, we get more benefit from the additional rent than it costs us on the any additional maintenance expenses. So there is a higher cost benefit that we do get from the student housing.
Okay.
So that's one of the things we like. The other thing that we do like also about the student housing is it is fairly recession resilient, and we all know that we're in a high point in our market right now. We don't quite know what's going on as far as where we're going to be in the economy. And student housing historically has done very well during down markets. And that's something also that I look at when I look at a property is how well did it do during the last recession, and to see how far down it dipped. And typically you find that student housing and as well as self-storage typically do well in those markets. And so that's another reason why we like looking at those now as well.
Yeah, I think the rationale is people go to school when the economy downturn, right? So
that's part of it. And the other thing is parents are going to try to get their kids into college as soon as they get out of high school, because if they lose them to the workforce for a year or two, it's going to be real tough getting them back in.
Oh, got it.
So if a parent is going to be paying for their kid, they are going to find a way to do it. Otherwise, they may not get them into college later on.
Got it. So what is, in terms of value add, and I'm sure you are trying to make your community in terms of student housing much more better than other community, right? So what are the value adds that you do in your community that you think, you'll be able to command much higher rent and much higher occupancy?
Well, the one thing is that, the one we haven't really done is the bed to bath parity. And as I mentioned, the person that broke a 4.2 into a 2.1, that was a value add because, as I said, the students prefer not to share. If you could add another bathroom, so you've got 2.2, even if it's a small little bathroom, or just a makeup area, or with a sink, that's of great value, because the students now don't like to share the bathrooms. I've got in Ohio, I've got some 4-4s, as well as some 4-2s, but they love having their own private bathroom. In Georgia, my property is all 5-2s. No, excuse me, that's Arizona. Arizona's all 5-2s, 5-bedroom, 2 baths. That's not as desirable. If I could put in some other baths, I would probably, make people happy, but that's a little expensive. That's not a real, cost-effective way of doing it. But also, we in the Georgia property, we put Wi-Fi throughout the property. So they essentially, anywhere they get on the campus or on the property, they've got the Wi-Fi. So that was definitely a value add that we put into it.
What about other things like study rooms or library in the community? We
just redid our office, and we did put in a what do you call it? A workspace.
Workspace, business center kind of thing?
Yeah, a business center, exactly. We did put in a business center where they could come in and print if they need to print documents, because a lot of the kids have their tablets or their laptops or their phones or whatever, but they may not even have printers these days. And I guess a lot of the stuff they submit right online and, in a PDF to their teacher or whatever. But we did create the business center so they could come in and print stuff out if they need to, and do that. And also have a scanner where they can, scan their documents and send them in.
Got it.
The other thing that we were looking at, but we may leave for the next owner, because we are selling this property, is a picnic area. We haven't built that yet. Put a picnic area with some barbecues and that kind of stuff. But that's the last phase of what we've been trying to do on this property. The main thing on this property is the students have loved it, is just fixing it up so it's much more livable. It was pretty disgusting when we got there. I mean, it was a nasty place, and that's why it was 30% occupied. And now we've got the premium property in the market.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. I mean, this is a value add in terms of managing it right? So just people love that.
And the other thing that we did on this particular property is we got a relationship with the school. We went on campus and talked to all the all the coaches, and told them we wanted them to send their athletes over to the property. And at first, the track coach went and looked at us like we were from Mars, and said, why would I want to send my kids over there? And then we invited him to come over and look at the property to see what we had done. And now we've got a bunch of athletes over there now after they see the improvements we've done. We also have participated as a sponsor with the athletic department, where we give them a donation every year, and we've been able to get an advertisement spot on their Jumbotron during all home basketball and football games. And so we've been putting our advertisement there. And that's why we're essentially at 100% with waiting list on this property. But, we got a relationship with them. We've gone, we went and communicated with the police chief and the mayor. The mayor actually came out to our open house wearing one of our T-shirts.
Oh, really?
The mayor of the city.
Wow.
So we got really involved with the community. It's a small market, but we did get involved with that, and all of that essentially added value. There's, like I said, we've got a waiting list now. We can raise rents. The main thing that we were emphasizing throughout this 2-year hold, we've only had it for a little over 2 years, was getting the occupancy up. That was the big thing. I wanted the occupancy up. I didn't care about raising rents. Now we've got the occupancy. Now we're going to start raising rents. Or what we're doing is we're actually selling it, so we're leaving it for the next person.
The next guy.
The next guy could come in, raise rents without having to do anything. They could come in and raise rents without having to do anything, because we've redone this entire property.
Awesome. Very, 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 very interesting tips on how to, get engaged in student housing marketing. So what about financing? Who gives the financing? Is it still agency loans, or is it small banks, or how is that?
Well, we'll start out with the Georgia property. The Georgia property, we paid all cash. At
Okay.
30% occupied, we weren't going to be looking for a lender.
Yeah.
My Ohio property, that was a challenge. And it ended up that I went with a privately owned bank. They have, it's not a small bank, it's 36 branches. So I wouldn't call it real small, but it's privately held. And they invest in, they'll loan in Kentucky and Ohio, I think. So if anybody's looking for either student housing or lending, they do those two states. They're actually a Kentucky-based lender. The Arizona one was just a regular bridge lender that funded that one, and eventually we'll go out of the bridge into an agency loan.
So you think you can get agency loan on student housing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can get agency debt on it.
Because I know usually when I go for agency, they usually ask, how many percent are students, how many percent are corporate housing and all that. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't remember if it's Fannie or Freddie that will do student housing, but
okay.
they do require a certain population. I think it's 15,000 student population, something like that.
Got it. Oh, really? Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, but I don't remember which one it was, but one of them will do agency.
Yeah. That's awesome. So let's go back to slightly more personal questions. So do you have any proud moment in your real estate career that you really remember throughout? You're going to remember for a long time, right? So that you think I really, really did something that I'm really, really proud. Do you want to share that with the listeners?
Well, I could go back to the Georgia property where I had a period that I actually was brought to tears. That when we were doing that video that I was talking about that we gave to the school to put on their for our advertisement, I actually went down and did the interviewing of the students myself for that property because I have a background in video, and the stuff that our property management was taking was just horrendous. So I went down there and interviewed the students. And I didn't tell them who I was. They didn't know I was one of the owners or the owner. And the last question I asked them, was if you had an opportunity to talk to the owner or to let the ownership know, what would you tell them? And some of the answers that I got were just tear jerkers. I mean, I had one girl that said that she was so happy with her new unit, that her new room, that she now could actually bring her mom and show her where she lived, that she was actually proud of where she was living now. And some of the other students were just saying, how much safer they felt, in much nicer environment. We had gotten rid of all the riffraff. We had gotten rid of a lot of people that were not students, but they were just living there and just smoking dope. And we had increased the security, and we had the police coming by, just to keep things, safe. And so just talking to these kids, they're not kids, they're 19, 20-year-old, young adults. But that was one of the most rewarding moments I had, because here they were. This is a low economic area where most of these students, have very disadvantaged upbringing, and we were giving them a nice, clean, safe place to live that they could be proud of, and they appreciated it much more so than on some of the other properties where we may have upper middle class people in there that probably don't appreciate what you're doing as much as these guys did. So that was just an absolute, great opportunity to be there with these guys.
Yeah, it's very interesting on how we as entrepreneurs and operators change people's life, right? And it's just so fulfilling when you do that, right? And it's just that I don't know. For me, it means a lot, right? Rather than making the money, I mean, this story you'll always remember it, right? I mean, sometimes you forget about how much money you made in that deal, but you remember how you impacted people's life, which is, I think, is very important.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think about. I mean, certainly we're all going to make money on this deal, a good amount once we sell this. But that feeling, I'll have all the time. I mean, that was great, hearing these guys.
Correct. So any advice that you want to give for newbies who want to walk your path in multifamily and in student housing in general, right? How they want to be as successful as you?
The thing is find somebody that's walked the walk. It could be a mentor, it could be a formal mentor, it could be somebody that's doing it. If you find somebody in your area or someone you meet up that is successful in whatever it is they're doing, be it multifamily, student housing, senior living, whatever, you find somebody else that's successful and find a way of being some kind of service to them, how you could help them out. And you go to them with that, hey, I would like to help you out, do something, and learn from them. That's the best way to learn anything, is to be working with somebody else that's doing it. That would be what I would do. I did some formal mentoring in the beginning, and that helped me get started. I would have loved to have been working side by side with someone with more experience. As it was, my partner and I were both about at the same level when we started. But being around someone that's been there and done that is a great way to start out in this business.
Awesome. Hey, Jeff, we almost made to the end. You want to let our audience know how to reach you?
Well, you can email me at jeff@synergetic.com, and that's spelled SYNERGETICIG.com. Or you could go to my website, which is also www.synergetic.com. You could also get a hold of me in Bigger Pockets, and I'm around on the forums a little bit.
Yeah, I remember when I was starting in real estate, I used to see you a lot on Bigger Pockets, so it's good to...
I haven't been on as much lately. I need to start renewing some of that, but I was on a lot back in the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, that got me a lot. I mean, it got me on my first podcast. So
awesome. Well, Jeff, thanks for adding value to our listeners and audience here. I'm sure we learned a lot. I learned a lot as well in terms of student housing and the nuances of how to add value in student housing and how to operate and at least look at the deal, right? And it was very good to have you here. And that's it. Thank you very much. And talk to you soon.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode. If you'd like to learn even more, check out James's free audiobook. It's the audio version of his best-selling book on passive investing. You can get the audiobook completely free, along with other valuable resources, by visiting www.achieveinvestmentgroup.com/free audiobook. Also, be sure to join our Facebook group too. To find it, just do a Facebook search for Multifamily Investors Group. Thanks for listening. Join us again for another episode next week. See you then.